and then you hear Udo Dirkschneider, who's the singer, just scream. Hello there, Robert John Hadfield here from Audiomover, here to talk about some really cool vinyl. You know, sometimes I pull records out that are a little bit more obscure, like this one is, and I pull them out either because they had some real significant impact on music or just because I happen to really like it. And this one is both things. When I was a teenager, I was learning how to play the guitar, and I met a guy at school that was a bass player, and he invited me over to his house to listen to some music. And so when I walked into this kid's room, the first thing I saw on his wall was a poster of the album cover for the Dead Kennedys' Plastic Surgery Disasters, which, if you've ever seen that, you instantly know you're in for something a little bit crazy and a little intense. And of course, you know, this guy was into punk rock, and if you ever listen to Dead Kennedys, I mean, that stuff it's fast, it's intense, it's in your face. I mean, that's what that stuff was all about. So when he asked me if I had ever heard of Accept before, this was back in, you know, what was it, 83? I was maybe a 14-year-old kid at the time. If I'd ever heard of them, I didn't. This was brand new stuff for me. And so he busted out this record, Accept's Restless and Wild. Now, if you don't know anything about Accept, they're a German band. This album had actually been released a year earlier in Europe, but then it was released in the United States. I think this is a different album cover, but it wasn't released in the United States until 1983. And this album was just, it had a big impact on what would end up really becoming kind of thrash metal. And so anyway, he proceeds to put this record on and put the needle down. When the beginning of this record, right before the first song, what starts playing is you put the record on, but what you start hearing is somebody putting a record on of a child song, a German folk song, a child song that's translated to English is A Farthing and a Penny. It's this little sing-songy thing that goes hi-dee, hi-do, hi-da. And you hear a record, on the record you hear a record playing it, okay? So you hear the pops and the crackles and everything. And then all of a sudden you hear that sound that everybody's familiar with, if you've listened to vinyl before, of a needle scratching across the record. And then you hear Udo Dirkschneider, who's the singer, just scream. It's one of the most blood-curdling screams in rock music. Just this incredible thing. And then all of a sudden, this song called Fast as a Shark starts playing, and it is just fast. I mean, it is trucking. It is moving. So, you know, so I shouldn't be surprised. You know, here's this guy that I'm over at his house, and he's into punk rock, and he's into this, which tells you a little bit about what this music is like if he was into punk rock and the Dead Kennedys and he also liked this. That first song on this album was kind of a touchstone of just intense, in-your-face, super, super fast heavy metal. And, you know, there's a story that Scott Ian from the band Anthrax, when he went over to Charlie Benante's house to do a drum audition, because Charlie was going to be the drummer, asked him if he knew how to play Fast as a Shark. Because at the time, that was the song that everybody knew, that was this incredibly fast, super, super heavy, but it was more in the heavy metal genre. And these guys were kind of, you know, as far as the United States is concerned, they were pretty unknown here in the States, but then this album came out and it had a really, really big impact on at least that genre. So of course, I liked the idea of the song. You know, there was this really intense, super heavy, you know, in your face, fast thing, and I liked the kind of craziness of starting out with this little kid's, you know, folk song and then hearing the record scratch. And so I went and bought it. I didn't listen to the whole thing with this kid that day, so I went and bought this thing. And honestly, the entire first side of the album, I really fell in love with. It was so cool. It was just awesome, in your face, heavy metal stuff. And it was kind of like I said a minute ago, it had a huge impact on that genre of music because it was really early on. I mean, not a lot of people had done this kind of music, had made something that was this really, really fast kind of thrash idea. And this was the early stages of that. And here's a picture of just Accept in concert. Accept is an interesting band, at least from a member standpoint, especially because you have this singer. Well, let me flip it over and we can start talking about the people that are in the band. You know, probably the best known person in the band, of course, is the singer Udo Dirkschneider. And he was just this 5.5 foot tall tank. You know, he's got the super short hair, and he always was wearing camouflage, kind of military looking stuff, and he just had this blood curdling scream. And the music was just filled with this just screamy sound that he would get out of his voice. Anyway, it was just amazing the sound that he had. And it was kind of reminiscent. I think a lot of people, at least me, you know, you start thinking of him as a German version of Brian Johnson. Just this huge screaming voice. And he was really the guy that kind of started this band. And stayed with it for a long, long time. And then he went off and did some solo stuff that he just named after himself called Udo. Anyway, so he was a singer and was just a unique person as far as heavy metal goes. The other people in this band, there's this guy named Herman Frank Jr. I don't know a lot about him. This was the first album, I believe, that he was with Accept. So this is actually, just so we're clear, this is Accept's 4th album. And, you know, it didn't, when we start talking about all these albums, you know, some of them that I do reviews and talk about here, these bands, you know, they're selling in the millions and millions of copies. This wasn't like that. I don't know that this album even went gold. I'm not sure about that. I'm pretty sure the next one, which was Balls to the Wall, that's the one that a lot of people in America really know of, because that song, Balls to the Wall, it really got popular. It had a popular music video. This one, not so much. So this one didn't do as well, but like I said, it had an impact on people who were in this scene. You know, they heard this, and this was kind of a touchstone of that kind of crazy, that kind of intense music. So, you know, we have these other people like Stefan Kaufmann. I don't know. He actually is a drummer, and he plays the guitar too, although he didn't play with guitar here. But I think he followed Udo when Udo did his solo stuff. Wolf Hoffman is probably the other best-known person in this group. Wolf Hoffman was a really excellent guitar player, and I think he still might even be with Accept. He's the only guy that's been with the band from day one, and continues to this day. And he's great. And he also went on and has had a career as a photographer. You know, I looked him up, I remember about 10 years ago, because I just kind of got curious what they were doing, and I started searching on his name, and all I could find was this photographer in Germany, and then I kind of put it together that this was him. So he's had something of a career as a photographer. Now this Peter, I don't know if it's Bales or Balles or whatever, this guy's kind of has a little bit of an interesting history too, because he's uncredited for this, but according to Don Dokken, he's the one that played the bass on the album Breaking the Chains. Now, the album itself, Juan Crosier gets credit. Of course, Juan Crosier played with Dokken for a while, then he went on and joined Rat, and then that's, of course, where he became mega famous. But he is listed on Breaking the Chains as the bass player, but according to Don Dokken, Juan Crosier did not play bass on that album. It was actually this guy, Peter Balles. So anyway, that's the band right there. And they were just this crazy intense heavy metal band in Germany. Now, I did another show a while ago where I talked about the Scorpions' Blackout album, and I talked about how that was produced by a guy named Dieter Dierks, who was a very prolific producer in Germany. Well, not only was he a producer, he owned an entire studio where a lot of bands would record their stuff, and that's where Accept recorded this album. And you can see down here, it's very hard to read the way they print it on here, this kind of cursive script writing here. But it says right here, recorded February, March, June of 1982 at Dierks Studios in Germany. So anyway, there was a connection here with Dieter Dierks, which would then, once again, this was just because a lot of the stuff that was happening in Germany, Dieter Dierks was involved with. So another thing that's really interesting about this album is the guy that recorded and mixed it at the Dierks studio that we just talked about a second ago. And it's a guy named Michael Wagner. Now, where have you heard of Michael Wagner before? Michael Wagner was actually the original guitarist for this band, but for some reason left and was in the military or something. I don't know what the story was, but was gone. And then ended up working with them just as recording their music and mixing their stuff, and worked on several different things for them. Now, the thing about him is that he went on and he actually produced Dokken's first album, Breaking the Chains. He mixed their second album, Tooth and Nail. He produced their third album, Under Lock and Key. He produced Extreme's Pornograffiti album. He mixed albums for Megadeth. He mixed albums for Metallica, Master of Puppets. He mixed that one. You know, that's a touchstone of heavy metal. Anyway, this guy, Michael Wagner, mixed that one. He was a mixer for the song for No More Tears, for Ozzy. And as a matter of fact, he produced Skid Row's first two albums, and he was the mixer on Too Fast for Love by Motley Crue. And so anyway, you can see he really kind of got involved in this heavy rock music, and he was able to really make a mark on that over the years. Anyway, that's this guy named Michael Wagner. Anyway, let's take a look inside, just at the album. You can kind of see what it looks like in here. It's they were on this record label here in the United States called Portrait, and the album is once again called Restless and Wild. This first song, Fast as a Shark, was just, this is, like I said a minute ago, this was such an amazingly crazy fast song. It starts off with this, you know, little folk tune, and then you hear that screeching, screaming, and then it just rocks. It's amazing. The next song, Restless and Wild, the title track, is actually a really cool tune. And you just keep getting this Udo Dirkschneider, intense, loud, screamy voice. It's pretty awesome. Head of the Pack is a great song. Shake Your Heads is a great song. Shake your heads till your brains are burnt. I mean, it's cool anthemic music, you know, from the time that was, especially at the time, it was so unique. Because in 1982, when this came out in Europe, it wasn't much like this. You know, this was intense stuff. And then Neon Nights was a great song. So all the tunes were on the first side were great. I didn't love the second side. I know I listened to the whole thing, but it was really the first side that just really was just amazing. And for a lot of people, that it just had a huge impact on music, especially heavy metal. People were just aware of this, and it just had something really, really unique for the time. So anyway, if you like these videos, please like and subscribe to this channel. And if you have old audio and videotapes, go to Audiomover.com. Audiomover.com is a company that takes your old audio and videotapes and turns them into digital. If you don't have any, you probably know somebody that does. So we'd ask you to, you know, put it on your Facebook page or share this video with somebody. If you know what this album is, you probably know somebody else that does too, and they'd probably enjoy taking a look at this and talking about it. But let them know also on your Facebook page or elsewhere about our company. Share this video with people and tell people that even if you don't have audio and videotapes that need to be converted to digital, you probably know a lot of people that do. And you can direct them to us, which is audiomover.com. Anyway, with that, have a fantastic day.